On a side note, man, Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know him personally, but he seems like such a psycho. Let 1,000 flowers bloom, meaning that we're going to try a whole bunch of and then we're going to figure out like what works. Is the work from home era over? And if so, how does that impact you? That's what we'll be discussing today on today's episode. Let's dive in. According to the Wall Street Journal, in a recent article they put out, the working from home era is over, meaning that you got to get your ass back to work. I mean, like in the office, like you can't wake up, throw your robe on, grab some coffee, watch Netflix while you check email. None of that shit anymore. You gotta get your ass right back in the motherfucking office. That was a joke, by the way. You can laugh. And so what does all this mean? It means that on top of the recent layoffs, on top of the macroeconomic conditions, the next step of companies trying to become more efficient, become more profitable, cut costs, and figure out how they need to report whatever they need to report to investors is for employees to go back to the office. What does this mean? That means on top of the recent job cuts, now you'll have to commute into the office to be more efficient per se. I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. If you're getting a check from a company, that's fine, right? Like you're blessed enough to have a job and be in a position where you are bringing in income. With that said, I think that you can now be more intentional about what you're working on, where you're working, and how you're working, and how the company's initiatives and goals align with your career goals. So let's take a look at some of the headlines of companies that are making their workers come back to work in person. Disney is requiring their workers to go back to the office 4 days a week. And then another one that you've heard about is Meta. Mark Zuckerberg has stated that this is going to be the year of efficiency. Salesforce is one of the companies that are making employees go back to the office while they get advice from Matthew McConaughey and will.i.am on top of the recent layoffs that Meta has currently undergone. If I'm not mistaken, they just recently let go about 10,000 employees. On a side note, man, Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know him personally, but he seems like such a psycho. Like he's not wrong, right? I make jest of it. Like he's not wrong at all. But I would say it really depends on what you're doing in the office, how you're collaborating, and what you're trying to accomplish. And in some scenarios, some of these pet projects, some of these initiatives that aren't necessarily clear, where you're just kind of toiling away, but there isn't really no end goal, or you really like there isn't a vision to accomplish a specific objective. It's just like more come in the office and let's like toss ideas at the wall. You know, I mean, I guess if you're making a ton of money, you're making a couple $100,000, then that's fine. But my thought process is, I mean, you could probably do that maybe one or 2 days a week, but not necessarily 5 days a week or 4 days a week. Me personally, I'm more effective when I have quiet and I can focus on the task at hand and knock it out, and I can have more impact that way. Put me in an office, put me in an open space 5 days a week, I'm just going to be less effective on top of the commute because there isn't enough time to really take a block of 2, 3, 4, 5 hours in order to really focus and hunker down and concentrate. I like to do my productive time super early in the morning, not necessarily, randomly at, like I'm at a certain time. Like I like it more structured, and that's so I could be my best self and have impact. I think when you toss in come to the office, let's do these meetings, it kind of cuts down on impact, cuts down on the amount of effectiveness that you can have, and it becomes more of a political game. But that's just my opinion. Let's talk about why there's this sudden pressure for employees to, go back to the office and be efficient and collaborate. Well, one of the key reasons is the Fed recently hiked interest rates again. I think on March 22nd, Jerome Powell and team did another 25 basis points. Money is still getting expensive, right? There's still pressure. Investors are still applying pressure to companies like Meta, Salesforce, to show results, to show that the investments equal revenue and not just pet projects per se. And speaking of pet projects, the Wall Street Journal did a really good article that just talked about the perils of pet projects. And I think pet projects were cool when there was a ton of money, right? Hey, let's just throw a whole bunch of shit and work out and, toss it up against the wall and see what happens. I think one of the quotes that gets tossed around in Silicon Valley is like, let 1,000 flowers bloom, meaning that we're going to try a whole bunch of shit and then we're going to figure out like what works. Well, the era of pet projects is over. If you're currently working, if you're still employed and you're still working in tech, or I think this applies, and actually this applies to any company. You want to be where the revenue is, right? Like that's one thing I've always focused on, is you want to be to where you have impact on the bottom line and you can show it. Like, for example, I was in tech sales at Google. I was focused on bringing in a certain amount of revenue. So pretty much, hey, you're paying me X, but I'm bringing in Y amount of revenue, and so I'm justifying myself. And I think, and while not every position is like that, that's really the mindset that you should have. Like, whatever projects you work should have impact towards the bottom line, so that you can always point to that in your, quarterly review or whatever's happening these days. Because if you're not working on something that is going to tie into the bottom line, then you're probably working on one of the projects like the metaverse or something like along those lines. Or you're probably working on one of the projects like the metaverse. I mean, I'm trying to, read up on it. I'm still trying to figure it out. But frankly, I still don't know what the hell the purpose of the metaverse, right? Like, I don't think there's still a clear vision. I think Mark Zuckerberg is more like, hey, I built Facebook back in the day. I had this one great idea that worked out. I'm going to get everybody to put on a virtual helmet, and then I'm going to get them it's going to be the new Facebook. And I think that it's a good idea right now. Maybe he iterates to something better. But personally, I wouldn't want to be working on the metaverse as a project because how do you show impact in some arbitrary, esoteric project that doesn't have any signs of being successful in the near future? And if I'm, if I'm wrong, if you guys see the vision for the metaverse and where it's going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, and you would definitely, leave whatever you're currently doing and go work on that project, let me know in the comments why. I'm just saying that I won't, but it doesn't mean that I'm not open to a different perspective or, a different idea. So let me know in the comments if you'd be down to go work for Mark Zuckerberg, and more specifically, work on the metaverse as a Facebook initiative. The reason why I say that is you could just kind of Google it. I think Wired had a good article. It just talked about the metaverse doesn't have a leg to stand on. And then now that Elon Musk, as you guys know, Elon Musk just released Twitter Blue. So now you're paying for a subscription to social media. I won't get into the nihilism of it all, is that now not only is your intention being used to generate revenue through advertising, now they want you to pay for the subscription in order to get your attention, which is a whole nother topic, but I'll keep it light today, right? Yeah, we got to figure that out. The internet needs to figure out a new model to bring in revenue so that it doesn't just suck the shit out of our souls. But not a topic for this specific video, so let me get back on track. The thought I was trying to complete before I rudely interrupted myself was Meta's running out of ideas, right? So next up is subscription or a subscription model that doesn't necessarily provide a ton of extra value besides what they're doing already. I don't see where it provides extra value, right? I think Olivia and I looked up some of the attributes on one of our last videos, and I think it was along the lines of, we'll give you more impressions or further reach. So maybe if you're a business, maybe it's relevant for you, but for the average person, I don't see the value in it. So all that to say is, looks like Meta's running out of ideas. And if you're working on one of these projects that aren't really going anywhere, probably not the best for your career. All right, so what should you be doing about this? Right, how should you think about the work from home era coming to an end, and how does it affect you? How should you think about the work from home era coming to an end? Usually in times of prosperity or when things are going well, you don't necessarily think about stuff. You're like, I'm getting a check, I'm getting paid, I'm getting stock options, I'm getting equity, I'm balling out. You're traveling, you're taking Instagram pics, you're in Aspen, you're in Tahiti, you're in Tulum. Now that, everything's pulled back and it's looking like we're going to have a recession, and we won't talk about the meaning of recession and all that on this call. You would need a whole another session for that. It also allows you to reevaluate, right? Do I like what I'm doing? How is what I'm doing impacting my career and what I have for my future? Do I want to spend my life working on this project, and what's the specific end goal? And if the answer is you're not excited about what you're currently doing, Or when you're looking at new opportunities or new job openings, if you're not excited about it, then don't take it. I recently turned down a job offer because based on my skill sets and what I'm excited about and what I want to focus on, it really didn't align like I thought it did. That's why I went through the interview process. But it ended up being something that I wasn't gonna wake up excited about or want to commute to an office for. So I didn't take it. Times like these, economics times like these are a good time to reevaluate exactly like where do you want to invest your time? Where do you want to invest your energy? And how does the things you're doing now for the company you're working for now affect your future? So I think it's just super dope that those that take the time to evaluate where they want to be in the next 5 years are going to be set up for success. That could be side projects, taking a job that gives you a better work-life balance, that allows you to work from home. Could be a multitude of things, but I think the more important part is becoming more intentional. At least that's what I'm trying to do. And different things like this, the layoffs, the work from home era coming to an end, and whatever's next, just gives you time to reflect on how to set yourself up for the future. All right, so what are the takeaways from this video? I think the takeaways are relatively straightforward today. While the work from home era is coming to an end, good time to reevaluate of where you want to spend your time as well as your energy. Good time to do some research and to think, hey man, like what am I excited about? What technologies am I excited about? What do I want to focus on? What will I get excited about doing that I can show up every day and be effective and have massive impact, not just collect a paycheck? You know, like I'll use football for instance. Athletes can typically, so football plays for a certain amount of season, but then they have time off. The difference between athletes and people like, you know, like you and I or employees that work for companies is that we work 12 months out the year. And so you want to make sure that whatever position you're taking, if you're currently laid off, or if you're working for a company that is changing policies or has structure that doesn't really align with your values, you want to make sure that whatever you're doing will allow you to be effective for a long period of time. Right? You don't have like an off season per se. You got like 2 days on the weekend, but you won't really call it like an off season. And so what's going to sustain you? What's going to keep you motivated? What's going to keep your mental health in a space where you can function? What's going to give you time with your friends and family? And even if you have to bust your ass like periodically, at least there's some sort of balance. And while I don't agree in like work-life balance as like a thing, right? Like if you're working, like you're working, and if you're getting paid a ton of money, you're supposed to produce a certain amount of results, but you can explore what that balance is for you. So yeah, that is it. If you like content like this, make sure you like and subscribe. You can also join the Patreon that's listed below. And then we also have like a newsletter that you can sign up for so that you don't miss any content like this. And with that said, I will see you in the next video.